A continuación, quiero pedirles por favor que recibamos con un tremendo aplauso a este emprendedor visionario, loco y tremendo personaje que es Sir Richard Branson.
There. Whoops. Hi, nice to see you. There. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
You guys talk about kisses. How are you doing, Richard? I think you can sit here so people can see you through the cameras.
Say again? No,
You
you want me
wanna sit
there?
here?
Okay, I'll sit there.
Okay.
You're much prettier than me, so.
No, I'm not. People think that I could be your daughter even. You're both blonde, so.
That's true.
Richard, first of all, yeah. You
Well, it's
look
better
a
than
little bit
granddaughter.
like my father. Yeah. What made
Where
you
was your
say-
mother?
Maybe, who knows? Maybe my father is not my father. Can you tell me a little bit about the beginning of Virgin, the brand? What made you take the decision to call it Virgin?
Well, I was 15 years old, and I was inexperienced, and I was also inexperienced at business. So, and it seemed a slightly risque name. In fact, we couldn't actually get it registered by the registry office for about 4 years because they said it was rude. And so we sent them long letters explaining that virgin actually means pure, and it's anything but rude. And finally we managed to get it registered. But the choice of a brand name is important. The good thing about the Virgin brand is it works in any country around the world. The logo is very simple, just a little autograph, so it doesn't cost a lot to do. And the good thing, you know, the other brand name that we were thinking was Slip Disc Records, and I think if we'd had Slip Disc Airlines, it wouldn't have been quite so successful.
Who knows? Maybe. What were your first businesses?
Well, first of all, I've never thought of myself as a businessman, strangely. You know, I've wanted to create things that I can be proud of. So the first thing I did was to leave school early and start a magazine to campaign against the Vietnamese War, which was a very unjust war. Most wars are, but this one was particularly unjust. And so I wanted to be an editor. And the business aspect was literally just to pay the bill. You know, you needed to worry about the advertising or the marketing or the promotion to pay the bills. But my principal interest was creating something I could be proud of. And I personally think the best businesses come from people who are not thinking, how can I make lots of money, but they're thinking, you know, how can I make a real difference to people's lives? And if you can create something that makes a real difference to people's lives, then the bills you'll be able to afford to pay the bills at the end of the year. And that's the critical thing.
Uh-huh. And, well, talking about making the difference, how have you been so successful in making your brand stand out in competitive environment?
I think finding wonderful people, giving them a lot of freedom to make mistakes and make good things. Great believer in lots of praise, no criticism. Making sure that your companies are fun places to work, nice environments. And making sure that you stay honest with the public, so that when you launch a product, you get every single little detail right, and you don't let people down. So then the brand gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and every new thing you do, it's much easier to do because of the reputation of the brand.
Uh-huh. And when did you realize that you had to offer an extra value to make a difference, to make people satisfied and happy?
Well, I think there's no point in doing anything unless you're going to offer extra value, whether it's extra value in quality or fun or innovation or price. It's pointless doing something if it's similar to what other people are already doing. So I think, I mean, one day I was trying to get from Puerto Rico to the Virgin Islands and on an American Airlines plane, and they decided to cancel the plane. And so I went and rented a plane. I put on a blackboard, Virgin Airlines, $39 one way to the Virgin Islands, and I walked around the airport, and I filled up my plane. And then I thought, somebody said, look, if you sharpen up the service a little bit, maybe you could be in the airline business. And so when I went back to England, I rang up Boeing, and I said, can you let me have a second-hand 747? And they said, what's the name of your company? And I said, it's called Virgin. We have the Sex Pistols, we have the Rolling Stones. And they basically said, well, look, we'll send somebody over to see if we can let you have a plane, but we just think that with a brand name like Virgin, we hope that if you start an airline, you will actually go the whole way, unlike your brand name.
Well, talking about those risks that I know you took in the beginning and maybe all over those years, what was the most riskful? Was it to launch all these horrible bands or controversial bands like the Sex Pistols? And then I also heard about a history that you have to mortgage your mother's house to pay some things.
Yeah, I think if you're building a business without financial backing, you're always on a very thin dividing line between success and failure. And I've only just managed to, for many years, stay the right side of that dividing line. And most people who start businesses do fail. Now, the word failure is an interesting word, because personally I think anybody who tries to start a business and doesn't succeed has had the most incredible education, and they should be praised for trying. In many countries, people who try to start businesses and fail, they're given a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. Chile, I think, needs to look at this, because I think people are treated like failures if they fail, and that discourages people from starting businesses. But we've had, when we started the airline, our bank manager panicked, and he decided to try to close the whole company down, because he couldn't understand how an entertainment entrepreneur wanted to run an airline. And I think what he didn't understand was that actually flying on airplanes you should be entertained. It should be fun. It should be, a nice experience, not the horrible experience it was in the past. But anyway, somehow we survived these battles.
Do you consider this like one of the biggest failures, when you had to sell the Virgin records to save the Virgin?
Yeah, I mean, we had the number one independent record label in the world, and we just signed the Rolling Stones, we just signed Janet Jackson. It was the record label couldn't have been going better. And then British Airways decided to launch what became famously known as the Dirty Tricks campaign, and they had people going through my rubbish bins. They had people illegally accessing our computer information and pretending to be from Virgin and saying our flights were cancelled when they weren't, and switching people onto British Airways. And it was about as dirty as it could get. And so we needed some financial resources to combat it and keep the airline afloat. And so we sold the record company. I hate selling companies, because a company is just a group of people. But with the money from that, we've had many we've employed thousands of new people in lots of different things all over the world, and we've had a blast. So, and the record company's gone on to do well with the people that we sold it to. So, in the end, it worked out.
Uh-huh. Well, this maybe is the hard part of being an entrepreneur, but I know that Virgin stands for fun, it stands for adventure, and many crazy things. So, what do you think is the most craziest or freakiest thing you have done to launch a new brand? I know you hang up from a crane in Times Square, and you're dressed up like a bride. What is, in your eyes, the freakiest thing you've done?
Well, I seem to have tried to kill myself on a number of occasions, and fortunately unsuccessfully. And I think that our attempts to fly around the world in a balloon were magnificent, but on occasions terrifying. And we were the first people to cross the Atlantic in a hot air balloon. We ended up in the sea. We got rescued by helicopters. We were the first people to cross the Pacific in a balloon. We ended up in the Arctic, and we got rescued by helicopters. We were the first people to try to go around the world in a balloon. We ended up in many different seas, and we got rescued by helicopters. As a thank you, we now sponsor London's ambulance helicopter service, and have been extremely grateful to the people who've come out and helped us in helicopters. But so we've had many adventures, and they weren't really directly to promote our businesses. They were wonderful personal challenges, but instead of having British Airways on the side of the balloon, we had Virgin on the side of the balloon, and I suppose it helped give Virgin an adventurous image, exciting image, and I mean, there was one trip where we crossed the whole Himalaya chain. We flew over Mount Everest, K2, incredible voyages and incredible memories. The Chinese tried to shoot us down. That wasn't so good. So we had the Algerians trying to shoot us down. We had some interesting situations, but somehow we got through.
Uh-huh. Well, there are many funny stories, and I know people also want to have a little bit of this Virgin spirit here in Chile too. So I know you've been here for 24 hours, maybe, not more. But I know that you have been speaking to people, and I just would like to ask you
we had lunch together yesterday.
Yes, we had.
I just wanted to be sure she wasn't my daughter, I mean.
Yeah, that's true.
I had a friend of mine. He actually ran a record label called Chris Blackwell, and he fancied this lady, and he's a naughty man. Anyway, it turned out that this lady was his daughter, and she was 28 years old. He didn't think he had any children, and she had a daughter. So he found a daughter and a granddaughter all in one evening. Fortunately in time. Anyway. So.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's talk about Chile. And I know that you've been speaking to people. What are your thoughts about Chile, its people, and its possible opportunities in entrepreneurship?
Look, I think Chile is, from what I've seen in a very short time, is one of the countries in the world that has more opportunity than almost any other country. So, it is a democracy, and and I know that right now, the particular government who's in power is unpopular, but it is a democracy, and in 2 years' time, people can change their government. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful that you have a powerful democracy here in Chile. You've got tremendous growth, which in Europe, we would love to have the same sort of growth that's happening in Chile. You have financial wealth as a country. Obviously, there's enormous challenges. I mean, the students have made clear that they want to see everybody have a decent education, and obviously they're right, and that's a challenge that they've set the government. I think that we've been campaigning in other countries to try to get them to reduce the length of university courses. I think in Chile that should be done. Yeah. And I think university courses are often set for the professors, not for the students. And for a lot of courses, you don't need 5 years, 7 years. Most courses you could halve so that people can, get their education done and get out into the real world and without so much debt. And I think that would be beneficial. But I think, from everything I've seen, I think that Chile could be one of the great, the really great countries in the world, and it's heading in that direction.
Really?
Yeah.
Sounds great. What advice would you offer to young people who want to start?
Do you agree?
What? Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I just wonder what people think.
You sounded surprised, but it doesn't. Anyway.
Do you have any advice to offer to young people who wants to start a new business here in Chile? We have many young businessmen and entrepreneurs here.
I think the first thing is just, is your idea going to make a difference to other people's lives, a positive difference to other people's lives? Most people have had, most ideas, hundreds of thousands of people have had the same idea. So, then the next thing you have to do is find people who believe in your idea and are willing to work with you and really passionately think that you can make a difference to other people's lives. And then I have a slogan which is just screw it, just do it. I mean, in the end, you can talk about it, but in the end, just try it. And you can launch businesses without financial backing. I mean, it's not easy, but the first businesses that I started, we didn't have financial backing. So with my magazine, we sold enough advertising in advance to pay for the printing and the paper, and then we put the magazine out. With our record company, we did a mail order company. We sold the records before we actually bought the records, so by handing out leaflets outside concert halls and getting the cash flow in advance. So, if you're imaginative, you may well be able to find ways of funding your business without the conventional way of funding it. And as a result, I didn't have to give any shares away in my companies. So, so we managed to self-fund it. So find a great team of people and make sure you're a really good leader. I mean, make sure that you learn to delegate early on. You genuinely care about the people you're working with. You genuinely care about the customers, and then you have a chance to build a great business.
Do you think there should be any limits in business?
I'm not sure what the word limits is. Does anybody know the word limits? It's not in my dictionary.
Yeah, I believe that. Do you still think so?
No, look, I think it depends your definition of limits. I think, at Virgin, we like to think the sky is no longer the limit, so we're going into space. But I think that businesses, the most important thing about a business is that you're proud of it. Your people who work for you are proud of it. That you run it in an ethical way. That anything that you do, you've got to feel. If you're going to read about it in the press the next morning, are you going to feel comfortable about what they write about what you're doing? I think that's quite a good judge as to whether you're making the right decisions or the wrong decisions. If you only live once, and so there's no point, I think, in going into businesses which, where you feel you're damaging other people's lives, like people who sell cigarettes or people who sell ornaments, or it can't be much fun, I think, for them to have to go home and tell their children what they're doing. So I think ideally you want to do things, you want to spend your life doing things in a positive way. I've just put out a book called Screw Business as Usual. And the and basically, what we're saying to business leaders worldwide is don't feel that the politicians are there to do the social work and that the social workers are there to do the social work. Business leaders have a lot of skills, like entrepreneurial skills, that social workers and politicians don't necessarily have. And so, let's make sure we get out and use our entrepreneurial skills to tackle, a lot of the problems in the world. And if every business person could at least adopt, one good cause at the very minimum, but hopefully in time a lot of good causes, I think we could get on top of most of the problems of the world. Virgin Mobile have taken on the kids and the people who live under the bridges, and are going to try to really work with them and help them. And so they're a small company. They're starting in a small way. So I think this every company needs to do something in that area.
I would like to ask you something about this social work that you are mentioning. I know that you are very interested in stopping the war against drugs. And how are you getting engaged with this debate?
Well, President Cardoso, who was a wonderful president of Brazil, and I think who put Brazil on the path it is today. He realized that when he was president, he didn't do what was right, and he continued to send people to prison for taking drugs, and he didn't deal with the drug problem. And he felt guilty when he left office. He felt he'd missed a big opportunity to do something about it. And he started ringing up other South American presidents, and he found, like the ex-president of Chile felt guilty too, that he hadn't done something about it. He found the ex-president of of Mexico felt guilty, and the next president of Colombia felt guilty, and then he rang up Kofi Annan, who felt guilty that he hadn't done something about it when he was running the United Nations, and then he rang up people for senior positions like Paul Volcker in America, and then for some reason or other he rang up myself, and anyway, so we got together a commission. We studied what was going on with the war on drugs on a worldwide basis. It was obvious that the war has failed. 40 years, if in business you have 40 years of a failure, you don't carry on, the business. You change tact. And so basically the commission decided that drugs should be treated as a health problem, not a criminal problem. In countries like Portugal, where 10 years ago they said, we're not going to put one person in prison for taking drugs, in the last 10 years, if somebody has, I know you don't have heroin problems, you have cocaine problems here, but in Portugal they had heroin problems. The state gives them free needles, gives them free drugs, until they're ready to go to a clinic to get help. And it's reduced the number of people taking drugs dramatically. It's halved the number of people with HIV. The amount of people taking marijuana has not increased. It's, and they've saved enormous amounts of money in prison costs, and that money is now going into rehabilitation. And so what the Commission is saying is that some countries should experiment by regulating marijuana, taxing it, use that money for education, use that money for warning people about the dangers of some of the more serious drugs, even use that money to warn people about the dangers of excess smoking of marijuana. And it just seems, and they've, in Portugal they've moved it from the Home Office, that deals with prisons and police, to the Health Ministry, and a much better approach. In Chile, your government has liberalized more than a lot of other countries. You are allowed to do in your own home what you want. But for some strange reason, the police don't seem to be interpreting it properly. And you've got 80,000 young people who get a conviction in Chile for, you've got 2 spliffs on you instead of 1. And tomorrow the various South American governments are all getting together, the presidents, and this subject will be discussed, and hopefully something positive will come.
We hope so, really. I know you consider yourself as a very lucky person.
Of course.
I would really like to know what you think people should have but luck to get successful.
Well, I do believe that a little bit of luck helps, because there are plenty of people who work just as hard as I've worked in my life, who've not had the same good fortune. And I've had the good fortune that there happen to be helicopters around when my balloons go into the oceans. So anyway, a lot of good fortune. But I think to be successful, you have to. You have to work enormously hard to make your luck, and in building a business from scratch, it is day and night. I mean, it's really hard work. Best to do it when you're young, when you don't have children and other commitments, because there's a lot of long hours. But as I said earlier, the key always is people. So, if you're not a good people motivator, if you're not good at dealing with people, then find somebody who is to work with you, because everything is about people. And try to make sure that you spend time with the cleaning lady, and you spend time with the person who's working on the phones, as much time as your fellow directors. Just very important that you get that right balance.
If there were 2 or 3 things that you wish you knew at the beginning of your career that you know today, what would they be?
Yeah, I think. I think. One advantage you have today, which we didn't have when I was starting. In those days you had phones which you couldn't move. Now you've got mobility. You don't have to be in an office all the time. And I think it's important to be out and about. Meeting people, spending time with your staff, spending time with your customers. If I'm on an aeroplane, I'll have a notebook in my back pocket. I'll get out and I'll, talk to everybody on the plane. I'll talk to our staff. There's always ideas, and I write those ideas down and then make sure I deal with them the next day. The absolute key in life is to be a good listener. I know what I know, and the only way I'm going to learn more is by listening to other people. And so I think to be a great leader, you need to be a really good listener. But if you listen and people have ideas, make sure that you don't lose those ideas, capture them.
How do you think is it possible to own around 400 brands all over the world and be clear and conscious of each one of them? Is it about trust?
It's basically at a very young age, I learned that the importance of delegation, and I think it's very important quite early on in your business to find somebody who's better than you, who's a better manager than you, to manage your business. And even if you don't want to do more businesses, try to put yourself out of business from quite a early stage in the business. That will then free you up to think about the bigger picture, and also it'll mean that maybe find time for your family, your children, and you know, your body, keeping yourself fit, healthy, all these sorts of things which are critical. So, and you know, I found that I've managed to persuade a lot of people who are running businesses to do this, and the weight that's lifted off their shoulders is massive. So in my own case, I learned to do that early on, and that's enabled me then to have the time, say, to come to Chile when, you know, we've got a wonderful team of people here who've done all the work in creating Virgin Mobile here. They've seen, you know, a gap in the market, you know, where young people seem to be, you know, taken for a ride somewhat by the mobile phone operators, and you know, I have some time to sprinkle a bit of hopefully magic dust on the company, but by learning to delegate, you know, they've done the hard work. I've just, you know, come in to take the credit if it works. If it doesn't work, it was nothing to do with me at all.
I'm going to delegate here too, because people's going to make some questions soon, so you can prepare them in your minds. Habrá tiempo para preguntas por parte del público, así que pueden pensarlas mientras. But first, I just want to ask you about this last shenanigan you made, this Virgin Volcanic project, the journey to the center of the Earth. How did that come up?
Well, we've been developing a spaceship to go into space, and that will be ready in about 8 months' time, and that's tremendously exciting. And we've also been developing submarines to go and explore the bottom of the oceans. You know, the oceans are completely unexplored, and only 3 people have been below 20,000 feet, and yet you can go to 36,000 feet in the oceans. We've also now built this craft that can go into the center of volcanoes, and of course Chile is perfect for volcanic exploration. And actually that was an April Fool's joke. So.
Yes, I know that. Okay, thank you so much
for
your time, and we're going to leave some time too for the
Okay.
audience.
Should we turn the lights up?
Vamos a dejar un tiempo para todos los que quieran hacer preguntas a Richard Branson. Levanten su mano, por favor. Sí, acá abajo. Sabemos que hay interesados y me imagino que hacia arriba también. Hay 12 personas dispuestas a los costados, aquí en los pasillos, que tienen micrófonos, para que sí, de acuerdo a quién levantó primero la mano. No sé si me pueden echar una mano ahí para ver quién fue primero y hagan sus preguntas. ¿Acá primero? Ok, ¿te puedes presentar?
Buenos días a todos.
Ok.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Me llamo John Benjamin, soy el embajador británico acá en Chile, el único andando con corbata hoy día, me parece. So Richard, thank you for visiting us. We have a lot of British VIPs who come here, politicians, ministers, business people, rock stars. I don't always end up thanking them for visiting, but we're very grateful to you for visiting. I want to assure you we're very committed to helping Virgin as an emblematic British brand here, so please count on us to help Virgin get off to a great start here. And finally, a part of my job, as you know, is lobbying, usually lobbying the Chilean government, but forgive me, I'm going to lobby you, which is to ask if your colleagues at Virgin Atlantic would look at flying here, because British Airways pulled out many years ago. In fact, with Chile becoming more and more of an important business center, more and more of a successful economy, with more and more demand, there are still only 2 direct flights from here to Europe, which is to Paris and Madrid. So if you want to go to London or Brussels or Berlin or Rome, with all the waiting time and the frequent delays, which I know Virgin would not have, it takes 24 hours of your time to get anywhere. So if you would please at least ask your folks to look at it. Thank you very much.
I mean, obviously, I'd love to be able to fly to Chile on Virgin and to go to London from Chile on Virgin, and we promise you we'll look at it very seriously. The English tie. Why did the English tie catch on around the world? I do not understand. Will somebody take his tie off for him, please? Come up here. I'll take it off for you. All right. Thank you very much. It was a terrible invention.
You have never used ties. You have to pick it up here. ¿Otra pregunta? ¿Sí?
Actually, you were mentioning like entrepreneurship, startups and stuff. Do you know this thing? Do you know Startup Chile?
I do. It's a wonderful organization. I don't know whether it was your government that started it or whose idea it was, but it's an idea I wish that we could have in Great Britain. And anyway, whoever's idea it was, I take my hat off to them. So brilliant idea.
Beautiful, yeah. So our question is, we are here, a few of us, and we'd love to take a picture with you with a T-shirt, this T-shirt on you also.
Well, if you sit here while we get the next question, I'll stand behind while you take a picture.
Beautiful,
so,
we do it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Come and sit on the side here, and then we'll take a picture. Okay.
Hi, I'm Manu Sharma, and I'm an aerospace engineer. And I really appreciate the work you have done with turning X Prize to Virgin Galactic. And I hope now, well, so being raised is always being an astronaut, and at least I can hope that if I don't become an astronaut, I at least can take a ticket and go to space. So what are your plans, next plans with Virgin Galactic? What is going to happen? After space tourism, are you looking for the next venture in space?
I think, yeah, sit down.
Take the picture.
Space. All right, very quickly, take the picture. Well done, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question was space travel. I think the wonderful thing about prizes to try to encourage breakthroughs is that they seem to work. The Longitude Prize many years ago managed to get somebody to come up with how to define longitude. The X Prize managed to get Burt Rutan to come up with a spaceship to go into space 3 times, and as importantly, to return from space 3 times. And then so we've used the technology from that prize to develop Virgin Galactic. And the initial price will not be cheap. It'll be about $200,000. But it's, if you go up into space in a Russian spaceship, it costs you $50 million. So it's obviously a lot less. And I think in the next 20 years, the price will come down and down and down. So I hope that most people in this room one day will be able to afford to become astronauts. And I suspect, I don't know if I'm right, I mean, is anybody in this room who doesn't want to become an astronaut if you could afford it? I mean,
Everybody wants.
hang on a minute.
The exploration of space will go ahead,
Turn the lights down.
and it is one of the great adventures of all time. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory on Mount Everest was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Virgin Galactic is on track to become the world's first commercial space line. And if you've ever dreamt of joining the incredible group of pioneering astronauts, your opportunity has arrived. During your adventure, you will accelerate to a breathtaking 3.5 times the speed of sound. Then, in the silent tranquility of space, you will experience weightlessness and views of our beautiful planet that will change your perception of life.
One of my passions or reason for wanting to fly in space is based on what these guys that do it say. And they talk about it for the rest of their lives, about wow, that was life-changing.
The rocket motor ride is a minute and a half or so, and it's exhilarating. It's like nothing else you've ever done. When that motor does shut down, you get this instant karma of weightlessness. And everything you feel in your body is the same way. It's wow.
Our first Virgin Galactic astronauts are booking their own place in history as pioneers of a new space age, and for them, the journey has already started. I've had some incredible adventures in my lifetime, and space is sure to be the greatest one of all. I am going, and I hope you will be joining me.
That's really impressive.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, really exciting.
You going to go?
I would like to. I would love to. Do you have any exact date you're going to go out to space?
Not an exact date, but when we really, I'm taking my children up on my first flight, so my wife wouldn't forgive me if I didn't get it right. It doesn't matter about me, but I want the children back. So we'll, but my guess is that about 12 months' time, I think we're getting very close now. So
Okay.
it's a very exciting stage.
Wonderful.
Beautiful spaceport, which you saw in New Mexico, and anyway, one day we might build a spaceport down here in Chile. You never know.
Maybe, yeah. Quedan dos preguntas. We have 2 questions left, so you girls have to decide here.
Hello.
My name is Francisca Varela, and I work for you at Virgin Mobile Chile.
At Virgin Atlantic?
So very happy for that.
Great.
And I wanted, well, to everyone here in the room, you're a very successful man. Thanks. You're a very successful man. But what is success for you? And how do you determine whether or not a business is successful to you? So what would be basically Virgin Mobile Chile successful? And what are the requirements for that?
I think the, obviously in a pure business sense, you want to be sure that your business survives and that you can pay the bills and that the jobs are protected. So that obviously is the first criteria. The second criteria is to try to like with Virgin Mobile here in Chile to create a company which the public really like. They like the way that they're dealt with on the telephones. They like the way every contact with Virgin is a pleasing one. So that if the Virgin brand is enhanced by Virgin Mobile, then if we bring Virgin Atlantic here, people who like the experience they've had with Virgin Mobile are likely to try Virgin Atlantic, and if they like the experience of Virgin Atlantic, they're likely to try other Virgin products in the future. So, reputation is in some ways more important than the short-term, bottom line. And I'm absolutely sure that you and the team will get the reputation right. So, thank you.
Ok, tenemos la última pregunta. ¿Me informan, por favor, dónde es? Acá, por este lado.
Hola, Richard. Para mí es alucinante verte. Mi pregunta es la siguiente. No sé si le están traduciendo, por favor. Hola, Richard. Hello, Richard. Mira, es alucinante verte acá, Richard Branson. Yo solamente quiero decir que gracias a Virgin Cola, yo seguí tu estrategia y en Sudamérica creamos un agua que se llamaba Benedictino y se la logramos vender a la Coca-Cola en 15 millones de dólares. Te quería agradecer haber seguido tus características y tu forma de hacer negocio y plantearte que cuando quieras llenar Virgin Cola en Chile, feliz podemos romperle el mercado nuevamente a nuestros amigos Coca-Cola con el producto que tú tanto posesionas y has desarrollado en Estados Unidos, en Europa, perdón. Era solamente recordarte que puedes tener acá la posibilidad de llenar Virgin Cola y agradecerte todo lo que hemos aprendido los emprendedores. Yo soy emprendedor de América Latina, con tu experiencia, y Benedictino te debe algo. Si quieres te lo puedo pagar al final. Gracias.
Bien, queremos agradecer a cada uno de ustedes. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for visiting us here in Chile. And I know you have to make an important call now. Yeah?
Thank you. Well, whatever. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.